Viewer discretion advised. This documentary discusses real crimes and may be disturbing to some viewers.
I just have something to tell you. I'm sitting down here at Denny's, and there was a little girl that just walked in that looks exactly like that girl.
Okay, is she still inside?
Yes, she is, and she's with an older man.
With an older man?
Yeah, and the thing that really triggered me the most was I was reading the Nickelverse, and I seen her picture in the Nickelverse, and I showed it to one of the waitresses here, and she said, "Oh my God, she's in here."
When a missing little girl is spotted at a store and then a local Denny's, the other customers couldn't believe their eyes. What were the chances that a child who had been abducted weeks earlier was sitting right in front of them in broad daylight? But as the police arrived on the scene, they quickly realized the horrifying case that shook not only the city of Coeur d'Alene to its core, but also the entire country was far more grisly than they'd expected. And worse than that, the perpetrator was even more depraved than anyone could have ever imagined. And this was only just the beginning of his crimes. May 16th, 2005 was a typical rainy day in the Pacific Northwest until an urgent 911 call came in from a resident of Kootenai County, Idaho. The resident initially called 911 to report a white pickup truck parked on his property that he didn't recognize. Unbeknownst to the caller, this would spark the beginning of an investigation that would send authorities headfirst into the most disturbing case they had ever discovered.
The only thing in the front seat is an axe and a little toolbox.
Then, later that day, dispatch received another 911 call from the same man. And this time, it was clear that something was horribly wrong.
You need to talk to a deputy about the vehicle for what reason?
Yeah, I sure do.
Okay, what's going on with the vehicle?
Well, the vehicle, I can't explain it to you. You just have the guy call me quickly.
Well, they need to know what's going on.
The vehicle, there's nothing wrong with the vehicle that I can see, but the vehicle belongs to a guy who is friends with the people that live in this junky house out here, and I went to the door to pay the little kid $10 for mowing the lawn, and there's blood all over the door.
Oh.
Nobody comes to the door. They are friends of the guy who owns this pickup, I find out.
Okay. Okay, let me have a deputy give you a call back at that 661 number then, okay?
Yeah, right away.
All right.
Many of the details presented in this video have never been heard before and were obtained from actual police reports along with chilling crime scene photos. As it turns out, the caller owned a nearby house adjacent to his property and rented it out to a couple, 40-year-old Brenda Groen and her boyfriend, a 37-year-old Mark McKenzie. Brenda had 3 children from a previous marriage who also lived in the home: 13-year-old Slade, 9-year-old Dylan, and 8-year-old Shasta. Authorities raced through the steady rainfall to the rural Wolf Lodge home and made their way down the dirt driveway. As they continued their approach, they stopped to peek inside the family's vehicle, which was parked a short distance away from the residence. Officers glimpsed a hunting rifle lying on the front seat and also noticed what appeared to be bullet holes in the rear windows. As they moved closer to the home, several bloodstains on and around the front door became visible. Deputies also noted blood in a pool of rainwater that had formed in the grass next to the walkway. They attempted to elicit a response from the family by pounding on the locked front door and demanding someone open up. But the only answer they received was that of dogs barking. They quickly proceeded to the back door and discovered it had been left ajar. Authorities immediately took one of the visibly frightened dogs into custody. The other, however, remained hiding inside the home. They would soon uncover the source behind the dog's extreme fear. Inside the kitchen, an officer made a most gruesome discovery. The body of a teenage young man was lying face down on the floor, his head wrapped and his hands bound behind his back with duct tape. Then, in the area between the kitchen and living room, the officer spotted another victim, a fully dressed adult woman also lying face down on the floor. Her hands were cuffed behind her back using heavy-duty zip ties in a manner similar to that practiced by law enforcement. Duct tape had also been used to restrain the woman's ankles and feet. Horrifyingly, there was yet another body lying face down in the living room. The adult male victim was dressed only in shorts, and zip ties had been used to bind his wrists and ankles together. The officers confirmed all three were deceased. They then searched the rest of the home for additional victims, where they located several firearms in the upstairs loft area. And after a thorough search, it was confirmed that there was no one else inside the residence. Little did they know, however, that the worst was yet to come. Upon further investigation, authorities uncovered more troubling information. One officer reported the welfare checks at the Wolf Lodge home were not uncommon, and that the family members who lived in the home frequently came and went with friends, often staying over as well. Therefore, authorities thought that perhaps the two youngest children had been staying elsewhere, as that seemed to be common practice. Later that night, detectives went to the prosecuting attorney's office to obtain a search warrant for the Wolf Lodge property and the abandoned truck. While they were there, an unexpected call came through to the police station from a man named Steve Groan, the father of the three children living. An officer was dispatched to meet with Steve. All three of his children should have been present in the home on the night of the murders, but with only one adolescent victim accounted for inside the house. That meant the two younger children were missing. The victims were determined to be 40-year-old Brenda, 37-year-old Mark, and 13-year-old Slade, leaving 9-year-old Dylan and 8-year-old Shasta unaccounted for. As a result, officers issued an Amber Alert for the two children just after midnight on the day after the bodies were found. Detectives then returned to the Wolf Lodge home. Though they hoped to find the children alive, they feared the worst. That same morning, as the rain finally subsided, investigators found a sizable blood smear on the back door and several blood droplets inside and outside the door. Then, upon entering the home, they saw many dried blood stains, some even containing grass clippings from the freshly mowed lawn. Prominent red smears on the swinging doors leading to the kitchen suggested that someone covered in blood had moved through them. The glass-top coffee table was shattered, leaving fragments of glass scattered about the living space. Furthermore, there seemed to be blood everywhere, from the furniture to the walls. Authorities followed a crimson trail of smears and stains down the hallway to a bedroom, where they found a massive quantity of blood on a bedding. Finally, while there wasn't any blood in the upstairs loft area, detectives did uncover a single plastic zip tie from the floor, matching those used on the victims. It was clear that the evidence inside the home told a terrifying story. But it became even more horrific as authorities examined the bodies further. It became apparent that Slade initially had duct tape covering his mouth that had either slipped or been pushed down around his neck. He also had red stains covering the bottoms of his bare feet, giving the appearance that he had walked through blood at some point during the attack. It appeared the young man had suffered severe catastrophic injuries to his head and other portions of his body inflicted by some kind of blunt instrument. Ultimately, the severe beating resulted in his death. Slade's head was lying at the feet of his mother, Brenda. Unfortunately, due to the ghastly blunt force injuries to her head, law enforcement couldn't even recognize her face. Not to mention layers of duct tape were entangled in her hair and wrapped around her head to form a makeshift gag. It was only due to the presence of several recognizable tattoos that they were able to positively confirm her identity. Unlike the other two, Mark had no duct tape on his body, but similarly, he showed several blunt force trauma wounds to his head that clearly penetrated his skull. Investigators also suspected that a bloody person had moved over him as he lay on the floor, based on a distinct pattern of blood droplets on his body. Most horrifying was the revelation that the murder weapon had been a framing hammer, as each strike left behind a circular marking with a cross-hatched pattern on its victim. Meanwhile, authorities continued to focus their efforts on finding Dylan and Shasta, treating the situation as a possible abduction by a dangerous predator.